Hi guys, know your numbers or don't be in business. I mean, it's as simple as that. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to or worked with who never really understood their own business. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One is I had a friend who had a restaurant, and it was a small restaurant, small Cuban restaurant, and it had 50 seats, right? They could sit 50 people at any one time, which sounds great and everything else, but when he was running into problems and he asked me to have a look at the numbers with him, we figured out that he would have to run at 80% capacity every time he was opened just to break even. In other words, he'd given himself an impossible task, and a task that, he set himself up for failure because he never allowed enough margin in what he was doing to make a profit. There will be quiet days. I mean, hopefully you could always run at 100%, but it's not realistic. And that's just simply because he never knew and understood his numbers. I'll give you another example. I spoke with a guy who had an audio-visual business that turned over $10 million per year, and he made $100,000 a year profit. $100,000 on a $10 million business is not a business. A $10 million business can breathe $100,000 easily in a few weeks. So his margins, he had cut his margins to the bone to match and beat his competitors, but then he left himself with virtually no profit and a marginal business. I mean, what would you pay for a business like that? I've also seen people who they've said to themselves, and this was a conversation, I have a 90% margin on my product, but I'm not sure where I'm going wrong. You can have any amount of margin on a product and still lose money. And for example, if you have a product that you sell for $100, right? And you have a 90% margin. So it only costs you $10. If it costs you $150 to sell the $100 thing, you're still not making money. Right? So you've got to really understand your numbers in a granular detail and work through the entire arc of that sales process and know exactly what it costs at each stage. You've got to be in business to get a profit. And the vast majority of businesses, particularly small businesses, only break even or make a very small amount. They basically provide an income for the owner, and that's not what you want to try and achieve. So know your numbers, right? And if you need help with that, reach out. I might be able to help you with it. But if you're going to be in business, part of business is understanding accounting. It's the language of business. You don't have to be an accountant. You don't have to, know all the terminology, but you do have to know that if you earn X amount and it costs you Y, what are you left with? And is that a profitable and sustainable business? I hope this helped. If you'd like to get in touch, just reach out. You can get me at markmcrae.com. Thanks for listening.